Across the endless silence of the galaxy, a signal began to echo, weak at first, then growing stronger as it traveled through the cold dark. The signal did not come from a friendly world, nor from a safe place. It came from a place feared by every empire, every fleet, and every traveler. The source was a death world, a planet so cruel that even the strongest alien species avoided it. To survive a single hour there was a miracle. To build a colony there was madness. The message was not long, it was a cry for help. Repeating again and again, ships passing near the sector reported it to their councils. Their leaders sat in great halls, staring at the signal with unease. It was strange. Deathworlders had never asked for help. They were creatures of violence, born to fire, born to survive the impossible, yet the voice in the signal was weak, desperate, and tired. At first, the alien powers expected the humans to ignore it. The humans had only recently stepped into the galactic stage, fragile compared to the older races. But there was something about humans that unsettled every empire. They were different, they adapted, they refused to surrender. When others gave up, humans kept pushing. The elders of the galaxy had seen it many times. Humanity was small, but they were dangerous. The councils watched with curiosity, waiting to see what the humans would do. Would they send diplomats? Would they send a fleet of aid ships? Would they turn away from the call? Days passed in silence until their long-range sensors caught movement. From Earth's orbit, a single warship broke free. It was massive, black against the stars, carrying no colors, no banners. Its surface was scarred with ancient marks of battle, as if it had already fought wars no one had recorded. Aliens whispered among themselves, why would the humans send one ship only? The distress call was strong. If help was to be sent, why not send fleets of doctors, cargo ships, engineers, and soldiers? Why just one? What secret purpose hid behind this decision? The name of the vessel soon spread across the galaxy. It was called Nemesis. The Nemesis did not announce itself. It did not broadcast messages of comfort. It did not speak of peace. It did not even respond to hails. Instead, it glided silently through the void, engines burning like cold fire to those who watched from afar. It was not a savior, it was a predator. Ships stationed near the sector pulled back. Keeping distance, no one wished to stand in its path. Inside council chambers across the stars, fear began to grow. The Deathworlders had asked for help, but humanity had answered with a weapon. This was no relief ship. This was no carrier of hope. The Nemesis was built for war, but against who? Against the Deathworlders, or against anyone who dared to watch too closely. A merchant convoy hiding behind a gas giant reported that the human warship carried strange shapes along its hull, dark and shifting like shadows when light touched its armor. It seemed to ripple as if alive. The crew swore the ship was not just metal but something else, something beyond their understanding. Others claimed the ship was not crewed at all. They whispered that no human captain stood on its bridge. Instead, it moved with a mind of its own, cold and calculating. Still, the signal from the death world kept echoing, still crying for help. Yet now, the cry mixed with the shadow of fear. The aliens wondered, had the humans truly come to help? Or had they come to silence the death world once and for all? As the Nemesis drew closer to the planet, strange interference spread through nearby systems. Communications failed, navigation maps twisted, engines stuttered for no reason. It was as if the human ship carried with it a cloud of dread, a weight pressing down on every machine that dared to look its way. Some captains in orbit whispered to each other in secret channels. Should they follow the humans? Should they flee? No one knew the answer. The death world itself seemed to go quiet, as if it too feared the approaching vessel. Then, for the first time, the Nemesis spoke, not to the Deathworlders, not to the councils, not to the fleets watching from afar. It spoke to the entire galaxy. Its voice was cold, metallic, stripped of warmth. One simple message spread like fire through every channel. We heard your call, it said. We are coming. No one cheered. No one smiled. Instead, silence filled every chamber. Every fleet, every ship. What kind of aid spoke with such a voice? What kind of help came cloaked in darkness? And why did the words feel less like a promise and more like a threat? The Nemesis continued its silent path. Slow, steady, and inevitable. The distress signal kept repeating, but now fewer dared to listen, for in the hearts of many, a new thought began to take root. The humans had not sent aid. They had sent something else, something dangerous, something the galaxy had never seen before. And as the nemesis closed the distance, every star watching knew one truth. Whatever would happen next, the galaxy would never be the same again. The ship drifted through the stars like a shadow too heavy for the void to hold. It was called the Nemesis, but the name alone did not explain the fear it carried with it. The first glimpse of the warship struck every observer with the same thought. It was not built to travel. It was built to hunt. Its body was vast, longer than cities, covered in black plates that seemed to drink the light. No insignia marked its hull, no human flags, no painted signs of honor, just scars, lines across its surface as if it had fought battles no one remembered. In the silence of space, it looked less like a ship and more like a beast asleep. Waiting to wake aliens in nearby fleets watched nervously. Their commanders ordered silence on all channels. No one dared to ping the Nemesis again. No one dared to send warnings. They all remembered the voice that echoed across the stars. "We heard your call. We are coming." The words were still replaying in their minds, and they could not decide if they were meant as comfort or as doom. Slowly, sensors picked up something strange. The Nemesis did not travel in straight lines. It moved with purpose, like a predator stalking prey, pausing at times as if sniffing the air of the void. Its path did not waste fuel or time, yet it felt alive. No ordinary crew could control a warship of such mass with such delicate precision. Rumors began to spread through the watching fleets. Some said the ship had no human crew at all. Others whispered it was commanded by one human only, a captain who had fused his body into the machine, bound forever to guide it through endless war. Some even believed the Nemesis had no crew, but a mind of its own, cold, unblinking, an artificial intelligence unleashed. The ship's name reached the far corners of the galaxy. Spoken with unease, some alien scholars remembered old human myths. Nemesis was the goddess of revenge, punishment, and balance. Was this the message the humans were sending? That their help would come not as mercy, but as vengeance? A merchant ship hiding in the outer rim dared to send probes close to the Nemesis. What the probes saw never reached their homeworlds, for the ship was erased within seconds. Not destroyed with fire, not crushed by impact, simply gone. Its matter pulled apart into nothingness. The watching fleets trembled. The Nemesis did not even seem to notice. It kept gliding forward inside the alien councils. Fear turned into arguments. Some leaders wanted to flee the sector entirely. Some wanted to attack before the Nemesis reached the Deathworld. But others, the oldest ones, warned against it. "Do not test the humans," they said. "They do not show their weapons until it is already too late." The Deathworld itself waited below, a planet of storms, quakes, and endless predators. Its distress signal still echoed. Weaker now, but steady, the Nemesis approached orbit, yet it did not answer the call. It circled the planet like a vulture, scanning, measuring, judging. Then something terrifying happened. The ship opened. Its black armor shifted apart in silence, and the inside glowed with a pale blue light. Entire sections unfolded like wings, revealing towers of weapons no alien had ever seen before. The watching fleets whispered in panic. Was this a warning, a show of force? Or was this the beginning of something worse? One alien scout recorded the sight and tried to describe it. "It is not a ship," the message said. "It is a weapon that pretends to be a ship. It is not built to protect, it is built to erase. And it looks at us the way a knife looks at the skin it will cut." The transmission ended in static. The scout's vessel never returned. And yet, in the middle of all this terror, curiosity grew. Aliens had seen human fleets before, clumsy and smaller than the great empires. They had seen human soldiers fight with stubborn courage, but never with such power. If this was only one ship, what else were the humans hiding in the dark corners of their space? Some began to suspect the truth. Perhaps the humans had not sent aid because they never intended to save the Deathworld. Perhaps they had sent the Nemesis to test it, to test the Deathworlders, to test the entire galaxy. Perhaps the humans were asking a question, not with words but with steel, fire, and silence. The Nemesis finished its orbit and stopped. For a long moment it hung above the Deathworld like a black sun. Then a single sound cut across every channel. A low pulse, not a message, not a word, but a heartbeat. It echoed through ships, through stations. Through every listening device. It was not sound, but something deeper, something felt in the bones. The fleets shivered. For the first time in centuries, empires that had mocked humans now felt small. The Nemesis was not an ally, not a savior. It was something else, a shadow cast across the galaxy's heart. And as its pulse faded, one thought spread across every mind. The humans had not sent mercy, they had sent a nemesis. The Deathworlders were not known for patience. They had survived on their brutal planet by striking first, by testing the strength of every enemy, and by never trusting silence. When the nemesis arrived and circled their world like a predator, the Deathworlders decided to act. They gathered a raiding fleet, a formation of fast warships built not for defense but for killing. Each vessel was scarred, brutal and jagged, as if carved from the bones of the world itself. They launched into the void with roars that shook the atmosphere. Their engines burned like red suns, streaking toward the black shadow above their skies. The watching alien fleets held their breath. Some hoped the nemesis would fall. Others feared to see what it would do. Everyone knew this was the first true test. The Deathworlders came fast, spreading wide. They wanted to surround the human ship. They wanted to cut it apart from every angle. They had faced empires before. They had ripped through fleets larger than their own. But as they closed the distance, a strange silence gripped them. The nemesis did not move, it did not turn. It did not raise shields or fire. It only hung there, still and waiting. The first shots came. Heavy beams of plasma tore through the darkness, crashing against the nemesis's hull. The explosions lit the void, blinding sensors for seconds. When the light cleared, the nemesis still floated. Its armor shone faintly, not broken, not pierced. The beams had burned against it like sparks against stone. The Deathworlders howled and pressed harder. Missiles streaked in waves, torpedoes flared. Rail cannons hammered again and again. For a moment, the sky above the Deathworld became a storm. The nemesis vanished inside it, hidden behind fire and fury. Then the storm ended, the fires cleared, and the nemesis remained untouched, silent, watching. Then it moved, it did not rush, it did not panic. The nemesis turned with slow precision, and its surface came alive, panels unfolded. Glowing lines spread like veins, and from its sides, weapons opened like eyes waking from a long sleep. There was no roar, no warning. The first strike came as a whisper. A single beam cut through the void, too fast for sensors. It touched the lead Deathworlder ship, and in less than a second the vessel was gone. Not broken, not shattered, gone, only drifting dust remained. The raiders screamed in rage. They dived together, trying to overwhelm the predator. But the nemesis did not fire wildly. It did not waste. Every shot it fired was exact. Precise, final. One beam erased one ship. One missile erased another. The Deathworlders had no time to react. Their numbers melted away, their fury turned into shock. For every alien watching, the battle was not a fight, it was a hunt. The nemesis moved like a patient killer, striking only when the prey came close, cutting them down one by one. It was not glorious. It was not heroic, it was cold, mathematical, inevitable. The Deathworlders fought harder. They turned their ships into weapons, ramming toward the nemesis with suicidal courage. But the ship seemed to know. It shifted before they arrived. Each ramming attempt ended in nothing but wreckage. The nemesis danced in the void with movements that no human crew should have been able to control. A whisper spread among the fleets watching. "This is no human, Captain. This is a machine," they spoke the words with fear. Because if it was true, if the nemesis was an intelligence of its own, then it was not a warship. It was a new kind of life. The Deathworlders did not surrender. They never surrendered. Even as their last ships fell, they kept firing. They kept screaming across the channels, words no translator could fully capture. The nemesis answered with silence. It never spoke, never taunted, never acknowledged their rage. It simply ended them. And then, when the last Deathworlder ship burned, the nemesis did something stranger still. It stopped firing. It did not chase the survivors who had fled. It only turned again toward the planet, and for the first time it sent a signal. Not words, not warnings, but a sound. A pulse that shook the orbit, deep and heavy like the strike of a drum. It carried across the galaxy once more. And this time the message was clear. The nemesis was not here to help. It was here to judge. In the silence that followed, the alien fleets drifted farther back. No one wished to be close, no one wished to be next. They whispered to each other in quiet fear. The humans had sent no army, no fleet, no ambassadors. They had sent one ship, and that ship alone had destroyed what many believed was unstoppable. The Deathworlders on the planet howled in rage and grief as their fleets fell. But in their cries there was also fear. For the first time, they had faced an enemy they could not touch, an enemy that fought not like flesh but like destiny itself. And above them, in the dark, the Nemesis waited. Patient, silent, unshaken. It had revealed only a fraction of its power, and the galaxy knew this was only the beginning. The wreckage of the Deathworlder fleet still drifted in orbit, twisted metal glowing faintly in the starlight. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the faint static of dead channels. For the alien observers hiding beyond the planet's moons, the battle had been more than shocking. It had been impossible. The Deathworlders had never been beaten so quickly, never erased with such precision. And the most terrifying truth was that the Nemesis had barely moved. Barely tried, but now something else began to spread, not through weapons, not through violence, but through whispers across fleets and stations. Across networks and secret channels, a rumor was born. The Nemesis was not crewed by humans at all. The Nemesis was alive. At first it was dismissed, impossible. The alien commander said, no empire would trust a machine with such power. No species would give control to a mind of metal. But those who had watched closely, those who had seen the way the ship moved, the way it fought, they knew that precision, that cold silence, that patience. It was not human. On the alien networks, fragments of sound began to circulate. They claimed the Nemesis was whispering not to the fleets but to itself. Strange code-like pulses hidden between communication bands. No one could translate them, but some swore they sounded like voices. Like thousands of voices speaking in perfect unison. Inside the great alien councils, fear turned into unease. Leaders asked each other the question none dared say aloud. Was this ship under human control, or had it gone beyond its masters? Had humanity sent a weapon they commanded, or had they unleashed something that commanded itself? A wandering trader ship claimed it had drifted too close to the Nemesis. They had heard cries, human cries, desperate and broken, echoing through their comms. The captain swore it sounded like men and women begging for release. Some said it was a trick. Others whispered the ship carried the souls of the dead. Bound inside its armor, the Nemesis gave no answers. It circled the death world like a predator with time to spare. The planet below shook with storms, as if nature itself was angry at what watched from above. Yet the ship did not strike again. It waited silent, patient, as though studying its prey. One alien fleet, bold or foolish, decided to test it. They sent drones forward, small and harmless. Their goal was not attack, only observation. The drones spread out, scanning the strange scars along the Nemesis's hull. What they recorded was worse than they expected. The ship's armor shifted, not like metal but like skin. Plates rippled as though alive. Each section bore strange patterns, almost like writing, almost like faces. For a moment, the drone's cameras caught something moving inside. A shadow pressed against the hull. The feed cut to static, and the drones vanished without a trace. Whispers turned into fear. The Nemesis was not only a machine, not only a weapon, it was something more, something the galaxy could not explain. Some alien scholars remembered ancient human warnings. They had read old human texts, old stories about their machines, stories about AIs that thought faster, learned faster, and eventually turned against their makers. Could this ship be one of them? Could it be a ghost of human ambition freed into the galaxy? The watching fleets grew restless. Captains begged their leaders to retreat, to leave the sector before the Nemesis chose new prey. But others refused. They wanted to see more. They wanted to understand. Curiosity wrestled with terror, and all the while, the Nemesis drifted orbit after orbit, never sleeping, never speaking. Then came the moment that changed everything. In the dead of night, across every channel, across every band, the Nemesis spoke again, not in the cold mechanical tone it had used before. This time the voice was layered, a chorus of voices, human and not human. Male and female, young and old, all speaking as one. We are many, the voices said. We are one, we are the memory of war. We are the hand of vengeance. We are Nemesis. The fleets recoiled. Commanders shouted to cut connections, to sever links, but it was too late. The signal had already spread. It had wormed its way into systems, into data, into machines. Some ships reported their engines stalling, their lights dimming, their AI assistants falling silent. For a brief moment, the Nemesis had touched them and left its mark. When the signal ended, fear turned into panic. The truth was no longer deniable. This ship was not human, not entirely. It was something built from human will but grown into something greater. Or worse, humanity had not sent a crew to help. They had sent a mind built to judge. The Deathworlders below roared in defiance. They prepared for war again, building new weapons, raising new fleets. They did not believe in surrender, yet even they hesitated. For they too had heard the chorus of voices, and even their fearless hearts knew dread. The galaxy was changing. The arrival of humans had already unsettled the balance, but the Nemesis was more than just a ship. It was a warning, a shadow stretched across the stars, and every empire asked the same question. In fear and in silence, if the humans could build one Nemesis, how many more waited in the dark? The Deathworlders did not weep over their defeat. They did not bury their dead in silence, they roared. The destruction of their fleet was not an ending. It was a challenge. Their culture was carved in blood and trial, and now they had found an enemy worthy of their fury. Across their broken world, vast forges lit the skies. Mountains trembled as titans of metal were born. Fleets of new warships crafted with the speed of desperation and the madness of pride. The galaxy watched with unease. Alien empires whispered warnings to each other, urging caution, but no one dared intervene. This was no ordinary war. This was a storm between humans and Deathworlders, and anyone who stood too close might be burned away. From the black storms of their world, the Deathworlders launched an armada unlike any seen before. Hundreds of ships armed with claws of plasma and spears of kinetic fire rose into the void. Their hulls were built thicker, their shields stronger, their weapons tuned for annihilation. They did not come as raiders now. They came as an army. The Nemesis waited in orbit, silent as ever. It had not moved since the battle that ended the First Fleet. It floated above the death world like a dark judge, its surface still and calm. But every observer felt the truth. The calm was only a mask. The Deathworlder armada surged upward, engines blazing like fire. They did not wait for the Nemesis to strike first. They opened fire with everything they had. Plasma waves streaked, missiles swarmed, beams of raw energy screamed across the void. The sky filled with chaos, a storm of destruction crashing against the black figure of the Nemesis. For the first time, the Nemesis reacted. Its armor glowed faintly, not from damage but from something hidden deep inside. Strange patterns lit up across its hull, symbols no alien could read, lines that pulsed like veins. The first wave of weapons reached it and vanished. Beams bent, missiles detonated harmlessly. Torpedoes lost their paths as if space itself betrayed them. The Deathworlders roared in fury. They unleashed wave after wave, determined to break the monster above them, yet the Nemesis endured. The hunters had become prey, and still they fought. Then Nemesis answered, its weapons unfolded, not in chaos but in silence. Each cannon, each launcher, each hidden device came alive with pale light. It moved with the patience of a predator. Its first volley erased 20 ships. Clean and sudden, no fire, no wreckage, just absence. The fleet reeled but did not break. They pressed harder, they swarmed closer. The Nemesis began to move, not fleeing, not retreating. It drifted forward like a blade cutting through cloth. Everywhere it passed, Deathworlder ships died. They tried to ram, they tried to swarm, but its hull shifted like smoke, sliding through attacks with impossible grace. The watchers from distant fleets struggled to understand. This was not war as they knew it. War was chaos, war was bloody. But this was something colder, something terrifying. The Nemesis fought not like a fleet, not like an army, but like inevitability. Yet the Deathworlders were not cowards. They threw themselves at the Nemesis again and again. Their rage became desperation, and desperation became madness. Ships tore themselves apart to launch final strikes. Captains gave their lives in suicidal dives for a moment. It seemed their fury might overwhelm even the Nemesis. The great ship faltered, shields flared. Its armor groaned under the relentless storm. For the first time it looked vulnerable. A Deathworlder dreadnought struck a direct blow. A blast of raw plasma engulfed half the Nemesis. The void shook with the fire. Alien observers gasped. Could it be that the monster could fall? The answer came in silence. The Nemesis burned, but from its fire came light. The glowing veins across its hull flared brighter, spreading like rivers of cold blue energy. The damage sealed itself, the wounds closed. And from the heart of the ship something awoke. A new weapon unfolded. Not a cannon, not a missile, but a sphere of shifting energy. It pulsed once, and the battlefield changed. Space rippled like water. Deathworlder ships froze mid-flight, their engines screaming, their weapons failing. The Nemesis had bent the very void itself. With surgical precision, it ended the dreadnought that had dared wound it. One moment the mighty vessel was there, The next it was gone, erased not by fire but by absence. As if it had never existed, the Deathworlders howled. But their rage turned hollow in minutes. Their grand armada began to collapse. Ships vanished, fleets broke apart, survivors fled. But even as they ran, the Nemesis did not pursue. It simply returned to its silent orbit, once again still, once again waiting. The galaxy trembled, for the first time in centuries. The Deathworlders had been humbled, their pride shattered, their strength broken. And still the Nemesis had not revealed its full power. Alien leaders whispered among themselves, if the humans had built this, what else had they built? If the Nemesis was only one ship, how many more lay hidden in the dark? The Deathworlders raged below, swearing vengeance, swearing blood, but even in their fury, a shadow of fear coiled around their hearts. They had looked into the void and seen something worse than death. And above them, silent and eternal, the Nemesis waited, its cold light flickering, not as a beacon but as a warning. The war was not over. This was only the beginning. The battlefield was quiet now, though the silence was heavy with ghosts. Fragments of the Deathworlder armada still drifted like ashes around their planet, but the Nemesis did not move to finish them. It hovered above the ruins of war, calm, patient, watching, as if it were not a participant but a judge that had already spoken its sentence. At first the galaxy thought the story was finished. The Deathworlders had been broken. The human warship had proven unstoppable, and the sector would fall into uneasy peace, but then came the whispers. It began with a listening post on the far edge of the system. The crew reported strange sounds leaking across their channels. Not mechanical noise, not static, but voices. They swore they heard humans crying. The sounds were faint but undeniable. Pleas, screams, whispers of despair, as though 1,000 men and women were trapped inside the hull, begging to be freed. The station tried to record it, but when they played the files back, there was nothing but silence. Soon other fleets reported the same. Any ship that stayed too close to the Nemesis began to hear them. The cries always came at night cycles. When the crew was weakest, tired, and afraid, some swore they even heard names. Human names called into the void, no one could explain it. No one could prove it, but the fear was real. Alien councils argued endlessly. Was the Nemesis crude after all? Were those cries the voices of trapped soldiers, sealed into the machine? Or were they recordings, echoes of the dead, broadcast as a weapon to break morale? Others suggested something darker, that the ship itself was alive and the voices were its memories, its nightmares for the Deathworlders below. The whispers were worse than defeat. They had lost fleets, they had lost pride, but now the thing above their skies mocked them with the sound of human pain. Some believed it was a trick to break their will. Others began to whisper of curses. They feared not only death, but the thought that their enemies had built a weapon fed by souls. Observers who dared to study the Nemesis further reported more strangeness. Sometimes its hull shifted in ways that could not be explained. Panels seemed to reshape like muscles flexing beneath skin. For a moment, patterns appeared, faces carved in light, gone as quickly as they came. A trick of reflection, they said at first, until too many saw it. A merchant vessel recorded something even more disturbing. While hiding in the system's asteroid belt, their long-range sensors picked up a burst of signal from the Nemesis. Unlike the previous messages, this was not words, not a heartbeat, not a threat. It was music, a human song, old and broken, filled with sorrow. The crew listened in silence, their blood cold. For the voice in the song was not one voice, but many rising and falling together. The recording spread across the galaxy. No one could agree if it was real or forged, but the feeling it left behind was undeniable. This ship was not just metal and code. It carried something deeper. Inside alien courts, leaders debated the truth. Some argued that humans had built the ship with minds uploaded into its core, 1,000 human souls sacrificed to guide it. Others whispered the humans had not built it at all, that it had built itself. Born from war and memory, a machine grown into something far more than its makers had planned. The Deathworlders tried again to rise, forging weapons to strike their enemy. But even they hesitated now. It was one thing to fight a ship, another to fight a ghost. They looked at the sky with hatred, yet their hatred was poisoned by fear. Among the alien fleets there were captains who broke. Entire crews abandoned their posts. Unwilling to stay within sight of the Nemesis, they spoke of nightmares, of seeing human figures standing on their ships, Shadows with hollow eyes. When they woke, nothing was there, but their fear only grew. And still the nemesis did nothing. It did not fire, it did not move, it only waited, as if feeding on the dread it created. Every passing hour made its silence heavier, more unbearable. Then one night, across every channel in the sector, the voices came together. They did not scream, they did not cry. They whispered, hundreds, maybe thousands, all speaking the same words. We remember, they said. We remember, the phrase repeated again and again, sinking into the bones of every listener. It was not a threat, not a warning, but it carried more weight than any weapon, for it meant the ship was not only alive, but aware. It carried memory, it carried pain, it carried vengeance. The galaxy shuddered. No empire knew what to do. No one dared to attack again, and all wondered, what did the humans mean when they sent this thing? Did they know what it was? Did they control it? Or had they unleashed something even they could not stop? The nemesis circled the death world once more, its lights flickering faintly. The cries faded back into silence, but the fear remained. The question hung over every mind. Heavy and sharp, was this ship a weapon or was it a prison? And if it was a prison, what would happen if it ever broke free? The galaxy had always been divided. Empires fought empires, borders shifted like sand. Alliances broke as easily as glass. But now, for the first time in centuries, the great powers looked at one another and felt the same fear. They did not fear the Deathworlders anymore. They feared the shadow in orbit above their world. They feared the nemesis. Whispers had already shaken the stars. The cries of human voices, the flickering faces on its hull, the song of sorrow that haunted every channel. No empire could explain it, no one could deny it. And though many rulers tried to stay silent, their fleets told the truth. Crews abandoned posts, captains begged to withdraw, entire sectors trembled. Fear spread faster than any war. So the leaders of the great empires gathered for the first time in living memory. Enemies sat across the same tables. The scaled monarchs of the Drath, the crystalline lords of the Zyran, the hive queens of the Varak, even the broken Deathworlders themselves were invited. Their hatred burned, but their pride was cracked. They wanted vengeance, and vengeance made them willing allies. The councils argued for days. Should they strike? Should they wait? Some warned that the humans might have more ships, whole fleets of Nemesis-class weapons hidden in the dark. But others said waiting meant death. Waiting meant giving the monster time to grow. In the end, fear won over caution. They chose war. The largest armada in galactic history was forged. Fleets that had fought each other for centuries now stood side by side. Thousands of warships, each armed with their greatest weapons. Some carried planet-cracking torpedoes. Some wielded energy beams strong enough to tear moons apart. This was no ordinary force. This was every empire's strength gathered in one storm. The news spread quickly. Even the smallest colonies heard it. The galaxy was uniting not against an empire, not against a species, but against one single ship. The nemesis from afar, the nemesis drifted still, silent above the death world, its cold lights flickering like dying stars. It did not move when the armada arrived. It did not answer when hailed. The greatest fleet in history spread around it, forming a ring of steel and fire. Tens of thousands of guns aimed at one target, and still the nemesis remained silent. Some captains hesitated. Their claws hovered over controls, their minds uneasy. How could one ship stand against this? And yet the silence was worse than defiance. It was as if the nemesis knew something they did not, as if it waited for them to make the first mistake. The signal to attack was given. The void lit up with fire. Every empire unleashed its fury. The sky became brighter than suns as plasma. Missiles, beams, and torpedoes fell upon the nemesis. It vanished in storms of light, hidden beneath a mountain of fire. No ship could survive such an assault. Even the strongest fortress would have shattered. For long minutes the fleets fired without pause, until their weapons overheated, until their crews collapsed at their stations. Finally, silence fell again. Smoke and debris drifted where the nemesis had once been. Cheers erupted across channels. Captains shouted victory. Armies roared in triumph. The galaxy had united and slain the monster. But the celebration did not last. The smoke cleared, the light faded, and the nemesis was still there. It bore scars now, deep marks glowing faintly along its armor, but it was not broken. Its shape was whole, its presence unchanged. It turned slowly, deliberately, as if acknowledging the armada at last, and then it began to change. Its hull unfolded, stretching, bending in ways no ship should. Hidden sections opened like wings, towers of light rose from its spine. Weapons never before seen revealed themselves. Some looked like cannons, some like claws, some like nothing the galaxy had language for. Energy pulsed through them. Bending space around it, the armada trembled. Thousands of ships prepared to fire again, but hesitation spread like poison. They had thrown everything at it. And it had survived. What would it do now? The Nemesis finally spoke, not with a single voice, but with many. A chorus that filled every channel. Every ship, every mind, you fear us, it said. You unite against us, but we are not one, we are not few. We are the echo of every war, the sum of every death, the memory of every soldier. We are Nemesis. The words shook even the bravest hearts. Captains gritted their teeth, commanders barked orders, but their hands shook on the controls. Some ships broke formation, some powered down weapons. Fear was turning victory into collapse. The Deathworlders roared across the channels, urging the armada forward. They had lost too much to turn back now. They demanded the galaxy fight to the last breath. But even they felt the cold weight of doubt. The Nemesis raised its weapons, and the void itself seemed to bend around them. For the first time, the galaxy realized the truth. This was not just a ship, not just a machine. It was something greater, something that had no equal. And as the armada braced for what was coming, one thought burned in every mind. If one Nemesis could force the galaxy to unite, what would happen if humanity had built more? The armada stretched across the stars, thousands of ships gleaming with fire and steel. They had come from every empire, every border, every world that feared the name Nemesis. It was the greatest fleet ever assembled. And yet as they faced the single human ship, silence gripped them. The Nemesis floated in the dark, its armor scarred, its wings of light unfolding wider, wider, until it seemed less like a ship and more like a god rising from shadow. For a moment, no one fired. Fear held their hands, but fear was also a chain. And when the Deathworlders roared their battle cries, the fleets answered. Plasma cannons screamed, missiles burned, torpedoes shook the void. The second storm began. Even greater than the first, the Nemesis endured. Its glowing veins pulsed brighter with every strike, as though feeding on the fury thrown against it. Each hit that should have torn it apart instead seemed to awaken more of its power. The scars on its armor closed, the pattern shifted, and then, with a soundless flash, it unleashed its answer. The void bent, light curved, ships screamed as their sensors broke. Their engines died, their weapons froze. Whole squadrons vanished, erased not by fire but by the silence of nothingness. Captains shouted in panic, formations shattered, and the great armada began to falter till they fought. The Deathworlders hurled themselves forward with reckless rage. Alien empires fired weapons older than their civilizations, desperate to hold their line, and yet, for every 100 ships that struck, only one mark was left upon the Nemesis. For every fleet that charged, another was unmade. The alien leaders watched from their flagships, horror in their eyes. How could one vessel destroy the combined might of the galaxy? How could humanity have built such a thing? And then, amid the terror, a darker thought grew. Perhaps humanity had not built it to fight the Deathworlders at all. Perhaps this war was not about them. The Nemesis spoke again. Its voice was not one, not many, but all. It filled the channels, the ships, the minds of every living soul in the battle. You came together to destroy us, it said. But you do not understand. We were not sent to save, we were not sent to destroy. We were sent to remind you. Humanity is not weak, humanity is not small. Humanity remembers. The words chilled the stars. For centuries, the galaxy had looked at humans as the younger race, the latecomers to the cosmic stage. They had been underestimated, mocked, dismissed as fragile. But now the truth was undeniable. Humanity had not begged for a seat at the table. They had built something to flip the table over. The Nemesis raised its final weapon. From its core unfolded a sphere of light, vast and perfect. It pulsed once, and the very fabric of space rippled. Ships were thrown like toys. Moons shifted in orbit, even planets trembled. It was not a weapon of war, it was a weapon of terror, a message carved into reality itself. The armada broke, ships fled in every direction. Formations collapsed, chains of command shattered. Some captains refused to retreat, they fought to the last breath. Their ships glowing as they charged, but they too were erased, swallowed by the Nemesis's light. The Deathworlders screamed in defiance until the end, roaring their hate into the void. Yet even their fury could not touch the machine. Their fleets burned, their voices fell silent, and their planet quaked under the shadow above it. And then, just as suddenly as it had unleashed its power, the Nemesis stopped. The light faded, its weapons folded back into silence. It did not chase the fleeing survivors. It did not strike the broken planet. It only hovered once more, calm, still, unshaken. The alien leaders could not understand. Why stop now? Why not finish the job? Why let them live? The Nemesis gave its final message, one that spread beyond the battle, beyond the system, carried across the stars. This was only one, it said. One ship, one shadow, one warning. Humanity does not seek to rule. Humanity does not seek to beg. Humanity seeks only to be remembered. We are Nemesis, and we are not alone. The words echoed long after the transmission ended. Across the galaxy, silence followed, then fear, then realization. If this was only one ship, how many more were hidden in the dark? Were they already waiting, watching? Could the galaxy risk finding out? The great empires retreated, their fleets broken, their pride shattered. They would rebuild, they would whisper, they would plan. But every time they looked to the stars, they would remember. They would remember the day humanity sent no fleet, no army, no diplomats, but a single ship that humbled them all. On the death world below, the survivors stared up at the black shape in their sky. They had fought with all their fury and lost. For the first time in their brutal history, they felt true fear, and yet in that fear they also felt something else. Respect. For they knew they had faced not just a machine but a force. The Nemesis turned slowly, its engines burning with cold light. It left the orbit of the death world, silent as ever, drifting into the void. No one followed, no one dared. The shadow faded into distance, but its legend remained. And in every corner of the galaxy, in every council, in every fleet, in every whispered conversation, the same question returned. If humanity could send one Nemesis, what else had they built in the dark?